Hi, I'm Bill DeYoung. This is the Catalyst Sessions for Wednesday. Here's a man who needs no introduction, 23-time Grammy winner, jazz legend Chick Corea. Hello, sir.
Hey, nice to be with you, man.
Man, I tell you what, we got lots to talk about. I'm excited that you're doing these shows up the solo piano shows up at Ruth Eckerd.
Yeah, well, it's going to be my first time playing for actual live people with bodies and in a room.
Boy,
So
I tell you what, you just rolled out my first question for me. Looking at your website, it looks like the last gig you played might have been early March, late February. You're like the rest of us now, Chick. You're working from home, right? Okay, so as a working musician who's been pretty much on the road for 50 some years now, how weird has this whole period been for you?
well, it's been pretty weird. Like for the rest of us, it's kind of an imposed lockdown. So being resourceful people that we are, we try to make the best of it. And of course, a lot of people, including myself, are taking the time to do extra things that they haven't done. For me, composing and practicing things and working on music that and projects that I had wanted to. For instance, I finally had the time to complete the commission of a trombone concerto that I've written for the New York Philharmonic. And I had
Couldn't
time
put it off any longer, right? Had to do it
yeah.
now.
So I had time at home for that
Oh, yeah.
and other compositions. And actually, my tour I was in Europe mid-March, and that's when the lockdown occurred. And we just made it back to the United States in time. And then shortly after that, I thought, I had never done this before, but I thought I'd go on Facebook and just play some music and see if it could brighten things up a bit. And to my amazement, an amazing amount of people tuned in. So I kept doing it for 30 days in a row, like a couple of hours a day, just to be in touch with. And it felt kind of cool because I'd be able to walk behind my iPhone and see comments that were coming in and answer, and people from all over the world. So having toured the world for a lifetime kind of paid off in terms of having friends everywhere. And then that led into me putting my academy together.
Tell me about your academy. I will say, in all blissful ignorance, I don't know what you're talking about. What is that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I left a big gap for you to be able to answer.
There it is. Tell me all about it.
Yeah. Well, for a long time, of course, my group is musicians. That's my peer group, and I get asked questions, and I've done occasional master classes for a long time now, and I enjoy sharing my 2 cents on what I've experienced with others. I never give advice as dogma, but just let them know, well, this is the way I found my way. Maybe it can help you. So I decided to turn that 35 days on Facebook into gathering a subscription audience together to put together an academy, which would be a place where musicians could come and I could share basic ideas and answer questions. So I've been
online. You're talking about?
Excuse me?
You're talking about online?
Yeah, online, of course.
Wow. Oh,
of course,
sure.
Yeah.
You can
where else?
connect. Well, yeah, exactly. But you can connect the world that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We've got subscribers from literally all over the world, from China, from Japan, from South America, from Europe, from Australia, from Africa, from everywhere. And basically, it's my offering of help because I want to see musicians become successful and bring more music into the environment, which I think is a positive thing. And it's been a lot of fun.
You are doing this Saturday, this Mozart to Monk solo show online. I did see on your website. This is I guess the precursor, if you will, to what's going to happen here at Ruth Eckerd Hall later in the month.
Well, it might be a precursor to a lot of things because I've never done a solo concert online like a paid concert where audience comes and it's one time, no replays, just one time live. That's it. So it's kind of an experiment, but a lot of people are tuning in so far, and it should be interesting. But I'm going to be really pleased to be in front of a live audience at Ruth Eckerd.
That's what I sort of imagined. It is October 23rd and 24th, and tickets are on sale now if they're not gone already. Let me back up a little bit. You've lived in the area for a few years, and I wonder, you could live anywhere you want, but you've been here for quite a while. You like it here?
I love it here. It has everything I want. I first started coming down here to go to my church and take courses, but since then, and from spending time down here, I fell in love with the climate and the general area, and of course the beaches. My goodness, you know, because I've been on the Riviera and other great beaches in Greece and so forth, and of course there's great spots everywhere in the world. But Clearwater Beach is a pretty smoking place to have pretty close to your house, and that was a big selling point. And the climate, I love warm weather.
Chick, I never would have guessed you were a beach person. I'm sorry, it never would have popped into my head.
Well, I'm not really a beach person, but every chance I get, which is maybe only a couple of times a year, I definitely go down there. And Gail and I we love to take late night walks on the beach. We go down there midnight, 1 in the morning, and it's safe to walk along the beach. It's lit, you know, in the sand, walk in the sand, put our feet in the water. It's fantastic.
Beautiful. I've been watching things today, and one of the things I landed on, man, I got to tell you, was it was a clip from the old Gray Whistle test in '76, and it was Return to Forever, doing Sorcerer and Sorceress. I'm sorry, I wrote it down wrong, but God, it was so cool. And it took me back. I'm 62, so it took me back to that era in the '70s. And this may be a little dumb, but bear with me. There was this era in the '70s when we had us, like dopey rock and roll teenagers, had this great awareness of jazz through fusion, through what you were doing, through what Mahavishnu was doing, and later through what Weather Report was doing. What was that era like for you? You guys were rock stars for a while. You know, I'm watching on this TV show, and you're just, well, all four of you, you're tearing it up. But I never got the chance to ask anybody from that era. What was that like?
Well, you know, Miles Davis kind of opened the door by changing the direction of his audience by changing his beat. Yeah. So, and I was in that band that made that transition.
Of course,
when I first joined Miles in 1968, Tony Williams was the drummer, and Wayne Shorter was playing saxophone, and we were still playing the repertoire that Miles had created with Wayne Shorter on those seminal records with Ron Carter and Herbie Hancock. They were playing Dolores and Agitation and Masqualero, and you know, it was acoustic wild jazz is what it was. But then
acoustic wild jazz.
Then during that first year, Miles began one night in Boston, I was headed toward the acoustic piano in the jazz workshop in Boston, and we were walking towards the stand, he pointed at this electric piano that was sitting on the stage. He says, "Play that."
Just like that?
Just like that, yeah, with no one. So I went up there and looked at this thing. I didn't even know how to turn it on. Yeah. And from that point, Miles was experimenting with, I worked out later that he was working with sounds and images and beats that he was getting from the pop artists, from Sly and the Family Stone, from Prince, and that side of music, and slowly our band morphed into that kind of thing, especially with the Bitches Brew sessions.
Yeah,
so that kind of opened things up for us to see that it's not just a musical change, but it's a communication change. It's like finding out how to get the interest of the younger crowd who were rockers, basically. So we put a rock beat in the music, but kept all of our other notes and harmonies on top, and that
Yeah.
was what we created.
Did the purists, have a heart attack? Like, hey
Oh,
man,
they
don't.
killed us.
Oh yeah.
They knocked us. They knocked us every moment that they could. We were a travesty to the word jazz, but that wore off pretty quick.
Well, how did that lead into, say, Return to Forever, right? And what you were doing there?
Well,
more of a kind of a
after
rockier aesthetic kind of thing.
after I left Miles, Dave Holland, the bassist I was working in with Miles, we were going in a free music direction. So we put together a band called Circle for about a year,
Mm-hmm.
and was playing free music, meaning there was no particular song to our music. Most of it, we'd get up on the stage and just improvise.
Oh yeah.
And it was pretty edgy stuff, and it was a lot of fun to do, but not a lot of people could grasp onto what we were doing.
Yeah,
And after a while, I began to want to put rhythm and melody into my music. So that's when I put Return to Forever together with Stanley Clarke and Flora Purim and Airto Moreira and Joe Farrell.
And after Airto and Flora left, and I mean, what they call, I don't know what those of us out here call the classic lineup with Al and Lenny and Stanley, which brings us back to what I was talking about before. It was almost like, I mean, I think that it's probably safe to say that Romantic Warrior is still a best-selling record you've had out of
it's still
99 albums. I read, Chick, 99.
Yeah.
You were on the pop chart. Let's put it that way. You were on the pop charts in the 70s. But, one of the things that I always thought was cool about musicians such as yourself is that you didn't stay there. It's like a restless kind of yearning for the next thing or something else. I mean, you've done so many things since then, between solos and duets and trios and the stuff with Gary Burton and oh my God, orchestral stuff. Will you ever find it? Have you ever found it? Or are you still looking for it?
I don't think. I think I found it. What I found was to just keep on creating and have fun making music and putting new forms together. That's the it for me.
Yeah.
And the constant association. One thing I found out about myself that has been this way forever, really, but then I just looked at it, I got outside myself and I said, what's that about? And it happened by me listening to classical pianists.
Uh-huh.
I have I love to listen to great classical pianists. I'm a fan of Evgeny Kissin. I love Horowitz's playing, Glenn Gould's playing. The young Yuja Wang is an incredible young pianist. Pianists like that devote their life to playing the piano. And I noticed from listening to them that wasn't what I was devoting my life to. What I devoted my life to was creating new music and bands. And I used the piano sort of as a tool to do that. I used the piano to compose. I used the piano to perform my music with my new bands and so forth. So that's became the it for me. What have I found it? That's what I found. I found that that's what I love to do. I love to compose music. I love to make new music and make new bands. And then I use whatever abilities I can muster on the piano and on the keyboards to demonstrate my ideas with my band.
This marvelous documentary that's out, which I watched, In the Mind of a Master, I think it's John Burke from Concord who says that reiterates kind of what you said, that it's always been about collaboration with you.
Yeah.
That it's always been about finding just the right guys and, I don't know, seeing what happens. I mean, is that a fair assessment?
That's a very fair assessment, and that's another part of the it, because part of the it is that so this is a new album. It's called The It. It is, I love to be a composer, but that's kind of abstract, because the reason for being a composer is to be able to collaborate with great musicians playing this music. So
Yeah.
the richness of my life really is made by my associations with the great musicians that I'm fortunate to be able to play with. All of these guys inspire me, and it's the greatest fun in the world to get out there and just get with these guys who you know they're going to come with their own versions. They're going to come with their own ideas, and that's the challenge. That's the adventure, you know. So I bring a composition, but they're going to take it and they're going to interpret it, and and every time we play it, it's going to come out different.
You have this great quote in this documentary where you say it's music is 95% the player and 5% the instrument. That it's really what comes out. It's the person. I think I got that right. Did I miss that quote? I think that's what you said.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can say, well, do you like the saxophone? And, you know, saxophone is just a piece of metal. Or,
Well,
yeah, like this guy plays the saxophone that way, and this guy plays the saxophone that way. Same thing with piano, same thing with anything. So it's the person behind the instrument, and that is what creates, you know, like, for instance, I have a really fun duet that I do with Bela Fleck, the great banjo
oh
player.
yeah, oh yeah.
Now, I was no great big fan of the banjo. In fact, I never liked the instrument very much. I blink, 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 blink. You know, I had I never followed banjo or bluegrass.
Yeah.
But when I got together with Bela, and he was a fan, he came to me and we jammed, and I thought, wow, this guy can really throw it down, and we had fun playing together. So we created a whole duet. We tours and recordings, and I'm playing with a guy who plays the banjo. But it's not the banjo. It's
Bela is a great example of what you're talking about. I've spoken with him a dozen times over the years.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he does it. It's still just a banjo to me.
Yeah.
But I've seen him play with Edgar. I've seen him play with so many people. He's amazing.
Yes.
You know, and the Flecktones are cool too. There's just amazing stuff there. I mean, do you ever get into a combination with people and you're surprised at how great it sounds? I would think that by the time you got to the point where you're in a room together, you know kind of what they're going to bring to the table. Are you ever overwhelmed by how good it is?
A lot. It happens a lot because well, you know, you have your imagination to predict how you're creating it, but then when you get there playing it, and especially the atmosphere I like to create in my collaborations is to encourage everybody in the group to really come forth with how they view it. So it's not restricted to, you know, play the notes this way, or I want it done just like this. I don't give a lot of directions. I just say, well, let's play. And that way the adventure quotient goes up, because guys will then come with very unique and wild things, and that's what makes it all interesting and a big adventure.
What do you prefer? I have a question about composition in a minute, but you just made me think, like, you know, I was watching you in the studio at Mad Hatter on this documentary. Recording and live performance. I mean, in jazz, they don't seem that much different because you're all live in the same room together. But what's your preference? I mean, is it giving it to the people at large, or making something for the CD and the vinyl? You know.
Well, I think any way of getting the music out is part of my objective. But anything that's done, for me anyway, anything that's done in the recording studio is always a result of having been out in the world, playing tons of concerts, experiencing life and music and other musicians, and ideas build up in my mind. And so then when I go to compose or lay tracks down in the studio, that experience is the basis of everything for me. I don't just record. As a matter of fact, most of my recordings, if you think about it, aside from Antidote, which was a studio recording, most of my recordings are recordings of live gigs.
That is so cool. The Spanish Heart Band, is that an ongoing thing, or did that kind of run its course already?
No, it's an ongoing thing, but we had to for various travel restrictions reasons, we had to put off a tour that we had planned next year. Instead, the Electric Band's going to do the tour next summer. But the Spanish Heart Band is definitely a family. Became a family during that recording.
I could tell by that documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very warm feeling. So
Yeah.
I'm looking for a time when we can all get back together again, maybe in 22 or shortly after that we can do a nice live tour. We did one live tour in Europe without Ruben, but with just the instrumental. We had a blast. It was a great fun. So that's on the docket sometime.
Let me ask you one quick question about composition. I mean, because being pretty much a non-musician myself, it seems to me, I mean, I look at a keyboard, okay, every time you sit down, Chick, you got the same 88 keys, you know, okay. What happens? I mean, I wanted to talk about, you know, the differences you talk about between structure and improvisation. Does it all come tumbling out? Do you edit notes? You know, you had this big discussion in this film about composition. How does it work for you?
Well, you can watch the 23 2-hour workshops that I've given over the past 3 months. And
I think I will.
You can find out in detail, but in brief, it's best summarized into the title of the little book that I wrote years ago called A Work in Progress, because that's what the life of my life is musically. It's a work in progress. Like every day there's some working toward the next thing. Like for instance, I'm working on a solo set that I'm going to do this Saturday, like you mentioned, online. So what I do is I sit down and I run through some ideas. Like I'll play the tune through. There's a Stevie Wonder tune that I want to perform, and I've just learned it, and I'm playing it over and over and over and over again. So it's kind of a work in progress. I'm not writing things down or composing, but as I'm practicing, I'm noticing certain ways to negotiate my way through certain parts of the song, or I come up with ideas and different tempos and different ways to color it. And it's just like over and over and over and over and over again. And I build up a multifaceted view of this idea, or in this case, of this song. And then I've got what musicians like to refer to as a toolbox. I've got all my tools there that I then, when I get to perform the piece, I have a lot of possibilities at hand.
Sure. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that they could all change once you're sitting down and doing it too, because the toolbox is so rich by now that, you know what, I'm gonna do a run here, or your brain just does it. And that wasn't the way you practiced it. But
yeah, exactly. Well, see, but that's I spend a good bit of time in my workshops also talking about improvisation and how similar improvisation is to composing, because in both cases, what you're dealing with is a facility that we've all got that we probably don't exercise nearly enough. It's called your imagination. It's a facility.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, remember your imagination?
Yeah.
It's like where you can envision things, you can hear sounds, you can see scenes, you can see emotions and results. You can so that's in improvisation, that's that factor. But then there's another also missing factor when music is spoken about, which also is another bunch of workshops, which is communication. Because when you're in front of an audience, which is to me the ultimate goal of being a performer, is being able to deliver it to an audience. I mean, I can practice forever at home, but the fulfilling moment is being in front of an audience, getting that feeling across, and having them experience it. So while I'm improvising, it's almost like, you see, like we're having a chat now, and we're both improvising.
Yeah.
And this would be different. I couldn't talk to the wall this way.
I couldn't play a piano like you, so yeah. you know. There we go. Let's see, I had one more thing written down, and I'm trying to figure out where I wrote it because I'm all over the show here. Oh, really quick, I just wanted to ask you about this, and we're almost out of time, so you get to go here pretty soon. There was a great story that you told, and I just loved this in this documentary about your time playing with Mongo Santa Maria, where the jazz guys were at Birdland and the Latin players were down at the Palladium. Can you tell that story really quick? Because I love that.
That's one of the great periods of my life growing up in New York, and that block of 50th Street, between 50th and 51st Street on Broadway, on the east side of the street,
Yeah.
where the two clubs were. There was Birdland down more toward the corner, and then up about 3 or 4 buildings was the Palladium. And that's exactly what was happening. The jazz groups would be playing at Birdland. And, I worked there with a lot of different groups, with Mongo Santa Maria, Maynard Ferguson's band, with Willie Bobo's band, with Blue Mitchell's band, with my own band later on. But so what we would do is there'd be at least 2 sets that we would play, sometimes 3 sets at Birdland. And the break would be pretty long. It would be like a 45-minute break, sometime an hour, because the club wanted to sell drinks and sell food.
Of course.
Yeah. So we would leave the club, or at least I would, sometime alone, and walk up the block to the Palladium, and just go ahead in, and the Palladium was a dance hall, and all the great Latin bands were playing there. And man, I'd walk in, and the vibe was so up, because people were dancing.
Yeah.
And the bands are just burning on stage, and so I would just take it all in. I'd stand in front of the bandstand and check the band out, and check out the moves and see if I could do a few. And but I know that the Latino musicians also would do the same thing. They'd come down to Birdland and see if they could sneak in the back.
That's cross-pollination, man. I mean, that's how it happens. We're talking about Tito Puente's band. We're talking about Eddie Palmieri's band, and all the people that you were playing with. I love that, and of course, you've done a lot of Latin stuff over the years too. And
when I worked with Mongo, Willie Bobo was the timbali player, and Willie then formed his own kind of Latin jazz group because he wanted to play trap drums. Mm-hmm. So he chose me as the pianist, and Larry Gales was the bass player, who was later Monk's bass player for a long time. Mm-hmm. And we had a great group there, and that was that thing of Latino musicians picking up the jazz and the jazz harmonies, and the jazz musicians picking up the Latino rhythms. And if you think about it, listen to what jazz radio is these days, like Sirius, Real Jazz, and other stations. The Latino jazz musicians are making
all over, man.
That's a big impact on music, starting with Chucho Valdez and Gonzalo Rubalcaba, and Eddie Palmieri is still smoking records.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine how old he is. I think it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
I think he's older than me. He's one of them.
Man, what a pleasure it has been to talk to you. Let me recap a little bit. Chick Corea Solo Piano from Mozart to Monk is this Saturday, October 10th at chickcorea.com. And it's only one time. You're not going to stream. It's not going out as a repeat video somewhere else. Live, you can do that. This in advance of the 2 shows from Mozart to Monk, solo piano, October 23rd and 24th in the Cabaret Theater in the lobby of Ruth Eckerd Hall.
Yeah, the first live performance.
First live performance since God knows when. Hey, such a pleasure to talk to you. Go to chickcorea.com, go to rutheckerdhall.com. You can find tickets to the latter. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Bill.
We wish you all the best, my friend. We'll see you soon, okay?
My pleasure, man. Thank you for
Take care, man.